With the recent update about Pokemon Legends ZA, I thought it'd be a good idea to revisit Pokemon X. So today we'll be looking at 5 things I think Kalos did really well and 5 improvements we can make. All right, let's begin. Replaying these games reminded me of the nostalgia that I had back then, which was feeling like I was playing Pokemon Stadium on a handheld. Because that was the first game really that you got to see your Pokemon come to life. And playing this again brought back those feelings. I do think some of the animations could be improved, but it's still a great step forward for the series. And it still gives you that feeling of you're kind of playing the anime. You're walking around with your Pokemon that are expressive, that are reactive to, your actions, and it really helps you bond with your Pokemon. The 3D in general helps connect you to the world overall, and I think that's really important here. Pokemon X and Y brought a new typing, the fairy type, and it's really cool because it brought a little more balance to the type chart. Now you have a weapon against dragons. You can hit them for super effective damage and also be immune to their attacks, which was pretty cool. Another cool thing is poison Pokemon became a little more useful now. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I never even looked at a poison Pokemon before Gen 6, unless they were park grass. Like, there's a lot of good ones out there. You got Bulbasaur, Vileplume, Victory Bell, Pokemon like that. But now, Pokemon are a little more useful offensively, and that's pretty cool. Also, a lot of normal type Pokemon became fairies. So Pokemon that you normally wouldn't use, chances are you would use them now because they were fairy, and I think that's really pretty cool. Adding the fairy typing to the mix definitely brought a level of variety and challenge and fun that was very welcome. I think the only adjustments I would personally make to this is give us more fairy Pokemon. Like, why isn't Melodic part fairy? Yeah, because that wouldn't break the game. Mega Evolution was probably my favorite gimmick that Pokemon has ever given us till this day. You would change the form of your Pokemon, boost its stats, and sometimes you would even change its typing. It was a really cool way to add some unpredictability to battles and really turn the tables on your opponent, at least at first. After we've been messing around with megas for a while, people kind of figured out which are the best megas to use, and I guess it got predictable after a while. So I think the only change or adjustment I would make to this is like give us more megas. You know, I think right now we are capped at 48, and out of the near 1,000 Pokemon we have, like, I think Pokemon can do better. Well, not really out of 1,000 because at the time of the game, we had, like, 6, 700 Pokemon maybe, but that number still feels a little low. I kinda wish we had 100 Mega Pokemon. Maybe that's asking too much, maybe that's too elitist gamer of me, but I feel like there should have been more Megas, especially, the game that you introduce Megas and you don't give it to the starters, something about that just didn't feel right, you know? Like Fennekin, Froakie, Chespin, their final forms should have had Megas. Am I the only one that thinks this? Anyway, Megas were great. I understand a lot of people didn't like them, but it could have been better if we had more Megas. And of course, some of the Megas needed to be more balanced, but I really liked Megas, and I'm excited that they're coming back in Legends ZA, and hopefully we can get more enjoyment out of them this time around. The story in X and Y I found kind of compelling, to be honest. So you start as normal, you meet your friends, you get your starter Pokemon, you meet the professor, you run around collecting badges, and you add to your Pokedex by catching new Pokemon. All that is pretty much the same in every other Pokemon game. Where it starts to get different is along the way, you find out about Mega Evolution, a form that Pokemon can take. Depending on their bond with their trainer, they can go further beyond and evolve further. This seems to be a focal point of the story that we'll get to in a second. Along the way on your journey, you run into somebody named Lysander, who thinks the world is beautiful, and for it to be more beautiful, it needs to be rid of the imperfections, namely people that don't agree with Lysander. and he actually starts this whole group all by himself, filled with people that agree with him, called Team Flare. And it's basically their job to get as many people as they can to agree with his ideals, agree with their ideals, and if they don't, they get taken out. Lysander shares with us that he found a 3,000-year-old weapon that was used to basically purge the world and start over. And he wants to kind of do that again. So he tracks down the guy that built the weapon and used it in the first place in an effort to start all this chaos all over again. And it's our job to stop him. Lysander seems really convinced that there's no hope for most of humanity and they need to be taken out so that the humans that are left have a chance to truly live and thrive. He's really dead set on believing that humanity has no redeeming qualities. So he took matters into his own hands and attempts to fix the world, which is kind of deep for a Pokemon game, to be honest. And I kind of like that. Our heroes finally catch up with Lysander and bring up the point to counter his argument that if Pokemon and humans can have a special bond, so special that it would trigger Mega Evolution, wouldn't that same type of bond can not only be shared with other humans, but be strong enough so that we can all live in peace? But Lysander's not having it, and he's saying the simple fact that Mega Evolution exists through a Mega Ring means that somebody is going to have access to it and somebody else won't. That means there's going to be fighting for it. That means there's going to be pain and death and suffering over this one thing. Now, just magnify that by everything else in the world that people need or want. So he's not listening to anything that they have to say. The whole power of anime and friendship speech is just not reaching him. So we end up having to take him down. And we get to witness probably one of the coolest losing screens of the villains ever in Pokemon. And after going through all that, I kind of see his point. I mean, he definitely took it way too far and, trying to commit mass genocide and all. But I also see where he's coming from. And I also see the point of, the whole special bond thing. If people could just learn to work together despite the imperfections, despite the differences. So I think the dichotomy of people are the reason that things are going to get worse versus people are also the reason that things are going to get better. And I really, really like that. I thought that was such a powerful thing, especially in a children's monster collector game. I also thought the post game was pretty good. We meet a familiar face. We go do investigations together, which I thought was pretty fun. We encounter this girl that's lost and alone and homeless, has no one and nothing. And it turns out that our friend finds a way to give her purpose and she starts to believe in herself and wants change, which is a really beautiful thing. She does, however, get caught up in the wrong crowd, and somehow the idea of brainwashing a child comes into this darker than I thought Pokemon Game Freak would even think of, but nevertheless we're here. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And the story then becomes us trying to get her back, trying to unbrainwash her, get her back to her life, and everyone can go home and that's it, happy ending. I think the way it's done is not too serious, but also serious enough that it'll leave a lasting impression. I think I'll never forget Emma. Personally, I think the only changes I would make with this story, and I think with stories of Pokemon in general, is just more interactions with the main characters, specifically the characters that drive the story along, whether that's the villain or your partners. I think it can really flesh out the story and fill it out more, in my opinion. But speaking of, Pokemon X and Y did a really good job in making each of the rivals stand apart from each other, not only with just design, but expressions, and characteristics and motive. Now, Serena or Callum, depending on who you chose at the beginning of the game, is that typical traditional rival, the one that just wants to keep battling you and wants to be stronger than you, which I kind of think at this point is kind of a weak motivation. It doesn't really make Serena or Callum stand out from the other rivals when they just want to be stronger than you. If they had their own motivations, I think it would make them more interesting as a character. But I do understand that this is kind of a typical trope in Pokemon. You need a rival that will kind of keep you in line as far as uh, being the best that you can be. I just think there's stronger motivations than that. I think they could have handled the main rival a little bit better, especially since this is the gen that started Mega Evolution. I think it would have been better if the main rival got Mega Evolutions earlier in the story. Because to be honest, when I first played this, I didn't even know the rival got a Mega Evolution to begin with. I think when I first played this, I didn't even do the post game. But turns out you can fight your rival once a day after you do a couple things in the post game. And that's the first time you see them use a Mega Evolution, which I think kind of blows my mind because this is the generation that introduced Mega Evolution, and your main rival is kind of supposed to be one of the most important trainers that you face throughout the game. I feel like it was such a missed opportunity for Callum slash Serena to get the Mega Evolution Stone kind of the same time as you. Maybe they could have made a slight adjustment to the story where you're at the Mega Tower or whatever it's called. I think it's called the Tower of Mastery, where you're under the Guru and Karina training. Like the Lucario versus Lucario battle was cool and all, but I think it would have been much better for me and Serena to battle, or me and Callum to battle, and both get the Mega Evolution there. Like the master, the guru, whatever his name is, can see the potential in both of you and bestow upon you both the Mega Ring. And that from that point forward, you would fight your rival with a Mega and kind of be on equal footing. And your rival would feel more like your rival because I feel like after you get your first Mega, literally everybody is a pushover. And I feel like that shouldn't be the case with your rival. Now, Shauna's an interesting character because she kind of is a traditional rival in the sense that she wants to keep up with you, but her motivation is different. Her motivation is not that she wants to be better than you. She just wants to keep up with everyone because her friends are the most important thing to her. So she kind of battles and travels with us just so that she can be with us, which I think is very sweet. And I think that does set her apart from the other trainers. I think that's kind of perfect for her. Like, she may not be the strongest, but you always have that person in your friend group that's like the cheerleader, that's like the rah, rah, rah. I believe in you guys. We got this. Let's do this. And let's all hang out. Like, she's that type of person. And I think that that fits very well in this group. I don't think I would change much with Shauna. Do people like Shauna? Let me know. Trevor, he doesn't like battling at all. His motivation is to just collect all the data on Pokemon that he can. So, in his own way, he's a rival to you in regards to completing the Pokedex, which I think is nice. It's very different than what we're used to when it comes to rivals. And I think that also sets him apart. He even checks in on you periodically. Hey, how's your Pokedex coming along? Let's see if I have more or if you have more. Like, there's a nice friendly rivalry between who can collect more Pokemon. And I think that really works for Trevor. And I think that makes him a worthy addition to this wholesome group of friends. Tierno is also unique in that he doesn't really care about the Pokedex. He doesn't really care about being the strongest. He cares about just Pokemon moves and dance moves and how he can be motivated to dance and move in different types of ways. And I think that's very interesting. It seems kind of random, but it is pretty cool that he can be set apart from the rest, not being a carbon copy of another character. Also, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know if that was right. I haven't seen the anime yet. I want to see the anime. Um, But yeah, that's Tierno. Tierno, he's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. He's very supportive of the team. He'll even give you items along the way on your journey. Well, I guess they all kind of do that. You know, they're all your friends. They're all looking out for you. And I think as a whole, all these characters really feel like one, they're your friends, but two, they feel like rivals in their own way because they have different motivations for this journey and different ways that they compete with you. And I think that overall makes them more memorable and it kind of sets the stage for rivals going forward. Now, I do like Team Flare. I mean, come on, I'm Firemaster Luke, but I think their outfits are pretty cool. They're kind of silly and goofy. They're really memorable. Also, this playthrough, I just realized that goofy looking pose that they do is an F for Flare. So many years later, and I'm just figuring this out now. But I think the biggest reason why I like Team Flare is because they gave us her. I mean, just look at her, you guys. Oh my god, it's Malva. It's Malva. Like, dear Lord Arceus, look at her. These things from X and Y that we discussed, I truly feel changed the series for the better and need to be highlighted. If you guys haven't played X and Y, I really think you should. It did do a lot for this series. I know in a lot of ways it kind of feels bare bones. It kind of just feels like an okay Pokemon experience that they tried to play safe. But looking back on it, I truly think a lot of the new ideas that people are crazy over nowadays are because they had their beginnings in X and Y. So, what do you think, you guys, about what I said? Did you like the games? What did you think it did right? What did you think it didn't do right? Do you like my opinion? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Let me know in the comments below. I know it was a bit of a short one today, but that's all the time that we have. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm currently working on videos for Alola and for Unova, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss those. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.